Great. I think everybody's here. We're going to make a start. So welcome to this fantastic moment that we have been awaiting for a long time, where we can come together and celebrate the arrival this month of the International Nonprofit Accounting Standard. So if you're on social media, you can use the hashtag INPAS arrives 2025. So it's not quite right on there. INPAS arrives 2025 is the hashtag. So my name is Samantha Musoke. I've been the IFR-for-NPO project manager since 2019, since the project started with Momentum. And I'm now the director of INPAS Adoption. And I'm delighted to be your host today. I'm dialing in from Uganda, and I'm sure you're all dialing in from all over the world. I know many of you have been following this project for the last 6 years, or have joined along the way. And some of you, maybe this is your very, very first time connecting with us. You're all incredibly welcome, and it's a real delight to share this moment with you. Do feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us which country you're in. If you have a message that you'd like to share with the world about this moment, then please do share it there. But please do keep your microphones off if that's okay. So today we're going to be recognizing our global stakeholders. We want to appreciate those of you that have been part of this journey. We want to reflect on the X years that's got us to this point, and we want to celebrate with some announcements and finally look forward to what is coming next. If we can move to the next slide. Now, unfortunately, it's hard to talk about INPAS without some acronyms. So I just want to do a bit of an acronym warm up so that when these things are mentioned, it's not so overwhelming. So INPAS, International Nonprofit Accounting Standard, the IFR-for-NPO project, which for the last 6 years has developed INPAS, stands for International Financial Reporting for Non-Profit Organizations. INPRF, one of the partners that worked with Momentum, is Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy. We might also hear about the IASB, the International Accounting Standards Board, and the standards that they produce, the IFRS. We might hear about IFRS for SMEs, which is International Financial Reporting for Small and Medium Entities. We might hear about IPSAS, the International Public Sector Accounting Standards, and IFAC, which publishes IPSAS, the International Federation of Accountants. And finally, we might hear about IFAS, the International Federation of Accounting Standard Setters. So sorry about that, but at least you can't say that you didn't know. And if you do hear those mentioned, hopefully it won't be so overwhelming. So without further ado, let's move into looking at the journey since I think about 2011 that's got us here. And if, Jenna, if you could bring in Tim Boyes Watson and Karen Bradshaw to be pinned here, that would be super. So I think one of the first moments was when, Tim, you were back in 2011, you were the CEO of Mango, and I think you published an article called Standing Up for Standards, which gained quite a bit of reaction. I'm going to come back to you in a moment, but I'd like first to speak to Karen Bradshaw. And I know until very recently, you were the CEO of Charity Finance Group. And I think I'd love to hear from you how you picked up this article and what happened until we got to the 2014 survey that we can see on the screen here. Over to you, Karen.
Thank you. Well, having come from the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, another acronym I'll save you from, I was familiar with the plethora of international standards, but perplexed by the absence of there being anything equivalent for not-for-profits. And our members at the Charity Finance Group, particularly those working globally, were challenged by the lack of consistency across territories. So in 2011, we proposed an event between sector bodies, representatives and regulators to explore what would be the steps for achieving an international not-for-profit reporting standard. And the event was hosted in July 2012 by MHA McIntyre Hudson. And it led to discussions with the Consultative Committee of Accountancy Bodies for research to be undertaken. And in November of that year, Mango and CFDG, as it was then, issued a joint press release supporting the research being undertaken. I used to write a column for Third Sector magazine. In March 2014, I used the advent of Pancake Day in the UK to talk about what had happened. So what I said was traditions and preferences have led to a multitude of approaches to pancakes. Some go for thin, large ones, which they drizzle with sticky syrups and lemon and sugar. Others prefer thick, fluffy ones. Some even like theirs with bacon. Whatever the local variations, the basic ingredients are the same world over. Pancake is shorthand. Whether you're in Cape Town or Colwyn Bay, you have a reasonable idea of what to expect, and that's reassuring. But in the financial world, can you say the same about reporting and accounting? We lack a similar shorthand reference. When we talk about the not-for-profit sector, we're thinking about organisations whose primary objectives are to provide goods and services for the public, community or social benefit. We accept that if equity is provided, there is support to the primary objectives rather than looking at financial return to shareholders. But the terms are not universal, and very different legal frameworks exist when comparing financial performance of these organisations across the world. So can you honestly say, but for the variations and local approaches and ingredients, you generally know what you're getting? So basically, we didn't think we were. And the publication of the Consultative Committee Accountancy Bodies study was the first authoritative study that said actually there was an appetite for these things. And in February 2014, they had, I think, 605 usable responses from 179 countries. 72% agreed that international accounting standards would be useful. And the support for it was strongest in America, Latin America, and Asia, especially with countries that didn't have national standards. So there was clearly a will, but was there a way? Enter IFR for MPO, a massive undertaking with a huge ambition. And I noted back in 2014 that there was a real importance that the UK's role in developing accounting standards should not be used to impose UK ideas internationally. So I'm delighted at what we've witnessed and to have been a very small part of a truly international endeavour to bring about standards which give that standardisation without losing the space for local nuance. It's been many years since those initial conversations, but they say good things come to those who wait. So well done to all involved.
Thank you so much, Karen. Super. I love the pancake analogy. It's perfect. I'm going to hand the baton over to Tim.
Sam, and hi, everybody. It's lovely to see so many names I recognise here on the call. Yeah, so back after I published the Stand Up for Standards in the CFG yearbook, then Karen Bradshaw, who was on the earlier call, turned out to be a real champion of this topic, and she organised a symposium which brought together the ISB and quite a few other, the International Accounting Standards Board, and a few other stakeholders to talk about, was this possible? And the outcome of that was this research, which was backed by all the major accounting institutions in the UK. So at this point, this was very UK centered initiative. But that research went very viral in some ways and global, and completely outstripped what the research team thought it was going to do. And 605 people from 179 countries responded. And it was an overwhelming, yes, we really need an international accounting standard. And I think we've actually got the author of that report on a short video. Is that right, Sam?
That's right. Jenna, do you want to go to the next slide and we'll hear from Gareth Morgan.
Back in 2013 and 14, I was Professor of Charity Studies at Sheffield Hallam University in the UK, and we were approached, amongst others, by the CCAB, the Consultative Committee of Accountancy Bodies in the UK, about the possibility of doing a major academic study to look at the case for international financial reporting standards for non-profit organisations. Those were the main parties involved in it, 4 universities in all. I co-led it with Louise Crawford from the University of Dundee. The survey took place in November-December 2013, and it was circulated to a really incredibly wide email list of all kinds of contacts. But we were delighted to receive 605 responses from people who had experience of not-for-profit financial accounting in 179 countries worldwide. And here's the responses by region. Although Europe was the largest group of respondents, you can see we had a very good 22% response from Africa. Overall, 72% of the respondents were in favour of international standards for financial reporting. but the narrative comments did show quite a different understanding of what was meant by accounting standards. There wasn't a uniform view on that. But what we did find was big differences across world regions. Respondents involved with European non-profit tended to be less supportive because there were existing standards, but certainly from African countries and also for the developing world more generally, the support was really quite strong. So we presented our report to the CCAB, and as you'll know, that's gone on and led to a massive project, which has now led to the launch of INPAS. So we wish it every success, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Gareth. So Tim, what happened after that? Surely that was plain sailing from there, was it?
Well, you would think so, Sam, but it wasn't the case, right? Because as in many things, evidence doesn't mean that policy changes. So although this research was picked up by the International Accounting Standards Board, and they consulted globally about whether they should take on the remit of setting the standard in 2015, unfortunately, they decided no, and some quite powerful actors didn't recognize the demand, including the International Federation of Accountants at that time and the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. And so really the story that from here on is it's a triumph of local and minority voices over those powerful voices. Because when they said no, what we did as a sector was realize that we had to do this ourselves. And Ian Carruthers, who I'd met back at that Charity Finance Group symposium, had just become the chair of the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board. And he was passionate about this issue too, and started organizing meetings of accounting standard setters. And at one particular influential meeting, a great colleague, Tamba Mamo, made quite an intervention.
Let's see if he's here. Tamba, are you with us? Are you able to join us? Tim, just before Tamba, come and join us. But Tim, you told me something somebody said about that we would never get standards for how many years?
Yes, right. That another thing that happened at meeting, yeah, somebody who used to work for the International Accounting Standards Board said to me, you know, in one of those sort of coffee breaks, sidled over and gave me some wise advice, which is it'll take at least 40 years before there's an international non-profit accounting standard. Well, we've done it in 13, just 13 years. Yes, Tamba, we would never. It would be 40 years away, but for you.
So what happened next is that the IFAS, if we go to the next slide, Jenna, the International Forum of Accounting Standards Setters had a meeting, and they were discussing what a shame it was that nothing could be done. And Tamba, you were the Deputy Auditor General for Sierra Leone at that time. Tell us what happened in that meeting.
Thank you very much, Sam. Indeed, I was at the meeting in Toronto in Canada, and this matter has been discussed almost at every IFAS meeting I've been attending since 2013. But no one seemed to have, up to that point, nobody was really prepared to take it on as an exercise. We got word in Toronto that the IFRS Foundation, the board had made a decision that this is out of their mandate, and IPSAS-B also gave some reasons why they could not take on the project. So the room was quiet, everybody was just seated there. I thought, okay, I have to say something. I got up and asked the question that if the standard setting bodies that were present in that room, and all of the international standard setting bodies were there, if none were prepared to consider this issue, but yet we say there is need for an international standard for non-profit. I asked the question, who is going to then look into the matter? Because this is an accounting problem, and accounting standard setting bodies are seated, and they are all saying that they are not able to, for whatever reason, one reason or the other, they are not able to start it. So when the question was asked, Ian, who has been mentioned at the time, chair of the IPSAS-B, stood up and, in response to my question, volunteered to work with other volunteers who would be prepared to be meeting and to discuss whatever we can, whatever solutions we can come up with. So myself and some other esteemed colleagues in the room volunteered, and that's how we started meeting and discussing many meetings we had before eventually that group became known as the not-for-profit group, which then finally became the TAG, which is the Technical Advisory Group, as you know it. So thank you very much to all the colleagues that worked with us on this. It was an honor and privilege to serve on this committee. Over to you, Sam.
Thank you,
very much.
Pamba. And thank you for challenging the room to actually take action. So from that point, the next thing that happened was that over 2017, 2018, Mango merged to form Humentum with some other organizations, and Tim recruited me into Humentum. I was introduced to Ian Carruthers, who Tim mentioned, and we also worked with Jeff Mechanic from the FASB, the Federal Accounting Standards Board in, it's not the federal, it's the Financial Accounting Standards Board in the USA, and together with ACCA Global. And we put together a presentation at the Humentum conference saying, is the time now right? Now, that was very well received. And then in 2019, we used the feedback from that presentation to develop funding proposals. We worked together with the Ford Foundation, the Oak Foundation. We got funding and we were able to start IFR for NPO. And I do want to just really call out Ford Foundation and Open Society Foundations. They did so much more than provide money. They asked really important questions. They helped us strategize and think through how we were going to eat this elephant. Lots of other people thought it was completely impossible and undoable, and they really backed the vision, which was incredibly brave of them. And the photo that you can see there, there's me and Tim, who you've met already. There's Ian Carruthers in the front with me, who we'll meet later. Jeff from FASB in the back behind me, and then John Bernstein from the Ford Foundation. And that was a really, really momentous occasion. And this partnership between CIPFA and Humentum has continued to be really vital all the way through, with CIPFA having that accountancy reputation among accounting standard setters, and Humentum having that reputation within the sector with funders and nonprofits. Right, let's move on. So 2020 was a year of building, and I'd like to bring in at this point Kenneth Makanga, Geraldine Limborg, and Chris Peach. So this was a really important year of building all the advisory groups, the networks of volunteers, so that we could actually do this work. We were a tiny team, but we had built together this group. So there was a technical advisory group of accounting standard setters that was really formed from the IFAS not-for-profit working group. There was a practitioner advisory group of auditors and NPOs, a donor reference group of government funders, multilaterals and foundations, a governance group, and of course, an amazing network of country champions. So I want to introduce you to some of those. So hopefully Kenneth and Geraldine are also in the room. As we wait for them, Chris Peach, welcome. You used to lead the Australian Accounting Standards Board, and we've been fortunate enough to have you as the chair of the project governance group, which has acted really as an independent group overseeing the standard development process and ensure it meets international expectations. So my question is, as an international and as an experienced standard setter yourself, what are the things that a country or a jurisdiction would want to have confidence about if it's considering adopting a standard? And crucially, based on your inside seat, do you think INPAS is adoptable? Chris.
Thanks, Sam. And just wanted to add my congratulations to everyone on a very, very well done project indeed. So one of the things when I became chair of the governance group was actually thinking about that question. So we wanted to make sure that there was a credible standard setting base with the support and involvement of a credible international body, which has turned out to be absolutely tick. We've got IFRS for SMEs as the base, and we have the involvement of the International Accounting Standards Board. Then secondly, we wanted to make sure that there was a really rigorous due process, and we had widespread and very deep input and feedback into all of the proposals. And absolutely, that's a tick. There's been some incredible feedback received. And certainly the governance group has been very happy with the way that all of that feedback's been addressed and accounted for. And then most importantly, do the standards actually meet users' needs? So are they actually created so that the benefits to the users outweigh the cost to the preparers? And I think absolutely the involvement of all the advisory groups and all of the feedback would say that those standards have come out absolutely shining. And then lastly, are they capable of being implemented and enforced? And again, I think all of the feedback from the various advisory groups has indicated that yes, that is in fact the case. So I would absolutely say that yes, they are very definitely adoptable standards, and I am particularly looking forward to seeing who's going to pick them up first. And I hope it's Australia.
Thank you, Chris. Well, we have actually issued our first license to Australia. They've used some of the exposure drafts. So thank you so much, Chris. Kenneth, let me come to you. Kenneth, you are an audit partner with BDO East Africa, and you were nominated to the Practitioner Advisory Group by the Forum of Firms. That's a group of the world's leading audit firms housed by IFAC. Now, I know that your audit clients include small and medium non-profit organizations in Uganda, where I am, and East Africa. So my question for you is, do you feel that the needs and the perspectives of organizations like your client were reflected in the discussions and in the debates that we had at the PAG?
Thank you, Sam, and greetings from Uganda, here, Kampala. Like Sam mentioned, I am a certified public accountant based in Kampala. And today is very amazing. That happens to be Independence Day in Uganda. And we are launching this, so it will be stuck in my memory forever. Back to your question, for the time that I've been involved in this project since 2020, I was mesmerized by how practical, how relevant really the discussions and the topics were to the NPOs that I have dealt with. For the 19 years, I've provided audit experience with NGOs, NPOs in Uganda. All the topics I would say were relevant, but two actually stood out, and they were in the first week when I started interacting with the rest of the group. In Uganda, most of the NPOs are recipients of foreign aid as expected. Just the definition on who is an NPO had always been a challenge. The regulators, depending on the stakeholder, an NPO would feel they need to meet the definition. When you ask the taxman, they will tell you that doesn't happen. But coming to the standard and the framers of the standard, just defining a reporting entity that meets the definition of an NPO was actually life-changing. And for many NPOs in Uganda, that's going to be very relevant. The other second and the last one that I just want to share, just for the benefit of time, I'll keep it on those two aspects, is the fact that many of the NPOs that have dealt with for the 19 years were always keen to make sure that their financial reports reflect a narrative aspect of the social aspects that they do handle. And when this standard was touching to that specific subject, I was smiling ear to ear. So for many of the NPOs, and actually I'm shocked that Australia has adopted this faster than Uganda, but for many of the NPOs in Uganda, this is the best package that they have been looking for. And I'm very grateful and very lucky that I was part of this discussion. I submit.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. It's been an honor having you on the PAG. And let me come to Geraldine Limborg. You're the Director of Operations at the Oak Foundation in Switzerland. And I really want to thank you because Oak Foundation, you haven't only provided funding for IFR for NPO, but you've been really strong advocate of the harmonized grant reporting aspect within INPAS, which we'll find out more about later. And you've also been the chair of our donor reference group. So I wanted to ask you really for your brief reflections on chairing that group. What have been some of the joys and challenges maybe? Thanks.
Thank you, Sam. Indeed, I'm passionate about these standards, and as chair of the donor reference group, my role has really been to bring donors together. What's been fascinating in the process is we've had some turnover in the group, and the overriding principle of everybody was joining the group was always, let's make things easier for NPOs. Now, I'm not saying that the standards are easy or easy to implement. I think, you know, it's not the case. But obviously, if you go towards harmonized reporting, it does make it much easier to kind of focus resources on what type of standard. And it basically ultimately means less time spent on reporting. And that ultimately that means more impact. And I think all of the donors around the virtual room, we never met physically, all of the donors were really behind that message. And obviously, the donor reference group has made sure that the perspective of various donors and their constraints are taken into account. And I have to say, I work for a private foundation. It's a lot easier to align to standards than it is if you're a multilateral agency, for example. So that's been one of the challenges. The joy being how we kind of really united against the ultimate aim. It's been really exciting to see funders collaborating like this. And I think it shows a real shift towards shared responsibility and towards long-term trust as well. So we're not just backing a technical fix, we're really helping to build a stronger and more efficient sector. And these days we need it more than ever. So thank you. The work with you and the team, Sam, has been fantastic, and hats off for all of the energy that's gone into this. Over back to you.
Thank you so much, Geraldine. Super. Thank you, all three of you. So I'd like at this point to bring in Pablo St. Martin, Luke Aside Rizzaro, and Caroline Kariuki. Hope you're all here. So Pablo, welcome. Let's start with you. You're the president of SMS Latin America, a network of audit firms working across the continent. And you were nominated by the Forum of Firms. That's a grouping of influential leading audit firms. You were nominated by them to join the PAG. I understand that your clients include small and medium-sized nonprofits in Latin America. So my question to you, Pablo, is do you feel that those needs of and the perspectives of your clients were reflected in the discussions and the debates that you heard at the PAG?
Thank you, Sam. Well, first, I'd like to share how happy I feel with the launch of INPAS after so much hard work. Going to your point, there was a strong interest and active participation throughout the process. All the clients' perspectives were clearly reflected in the discussions, and having a global standard strengthens transparency and enables audit efficiency. We are auditors. Allowing all the teams across Latin America to be trained consistently, reducing duplication, getting it's a big achievement for the profession. I am confident that INPAS will improve the access to financing to many non-profit organizations, and it provides stakeholders and especially donors with clear and understandable information. I would like to remark also the minority voices were present throughout the process. The diversity was outstanding. 85, I think that Tim mentioned before, 82% of responses came from emerging economies. We are now focusing on adoption. We have begun conversation with regulators and professional accounting organizations. And personally, again, it was an honor to be part of this project. We have supported and will continue supporting with full commitment. Thank you, all of you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Pablo, and thank you again for your support as a firm. That's been really appreciated. Wonderful. I'm now going to come to Luke. Luke, you're the grant-making effectiveness officer at the Ford Foundation. And as Ford, you've not only provided funding, but you've also been such a mighty advocate in this space. Now, Ford Foundation's mission is very rooted in social justice issues. So why on earth did you find yourself backing an international accounting standard?
Thank you, Sam. And it's really great to see everyone. So, I mean, I'll say primarily, you know, we really believe that our grantee partners are, you know, the people that are changing the world and that are furthering our mission. And we're really, really invested in their long-term vision, their long-term institutional health. And so we really see these accounting standards as supporting nonprofit financial resiliency, right? So it provides a framework for organizations to work with that is global. It helps us as a funder have a much better understanding of their financial picture across all the different countries that we fund in and all the different fields, helps us identify patterns and really understand what are those areas where we can also provide additional support to our grantees so that they can be more financially resilient. And then I will say, as a grant making effectiveness person at Ford, I'm also particularly excited about the possibility of having harmonized grant reporting, right, and kind of a shared understanding across funders of what we are asking for in financial reports, so that we can lower burdens for grantees, so that people don't have to write 30 different reports for 30 different funders in 30 different categories, right, and levels of detail. So that was also another piece that made us very, very excited and very proud to support this work.
Thank you so much, Luke. And you've also, of course, been a member of the Donor Advisory Group. And so thank you also for your support there. And finally, last but not least, I'd love to come to Caroline. Caroline, you were one of our very first country champions in Kenya. And at that time, you were the Director of Finance and Administration at the Open Society Foundations of East Africa. Can you give us a taste of some of the fruits of your efforts as a champion to engage stakeholders in Kenya over the last 6 years?
Thank you, Sam, and everybody else. I'm excited. This is a very, very proud moment to be here, and especially considering the long journey that have come since we started, and to the point now we are saying, indeed, we have the document. Now, what we did in Kenya, the first thing we did was actually to work with the local accounting body, because there is nothing you can do if you do not collaborate with the local accounting body. And one of the things they have been doing over time is to ensure every time they have a convening for the accountants or even for their CEO, it's they invite us so that we can also talk about the project. And therefore, there was an easy buy-in from the accountants because we kept on talking about it. The other thing that we are also able to do is to connect with the other regulatory bodies in the country, and especially the NGO regulatory body, the NGO board. And one of the things we learned from the NGO board is that they had in the work plan, they wanted to come up with a standard or something that can be used by the NGOs, so that when they are reporting, they have a harmonized template. So what we agreed with him is like, let us carry out with this INPAS, so that at the end of the day, they don't have to have so many templates. We can only have one harmonized template, so that they can be able to report to them. One of the things I also learned is to reach out to the CFOs, because at the end of the day, it is the CFOs who have the budget. It's the CFOs who know whether they are going to move into INPAS, or they still continue staying with the IFRs or IFR for SMOs. So what I've done continuously is really to reach out to my to the FSOs and finance directors, so that by the time we start the implementation, I already have a few organizations that want to start on to jump into the INPAS. So for us, and again also having a community of very enthusiastic accountants who are also willing to reach out to the other accountants, so that at the end of the day, they are also able to bring the gospel to the others. At most of the times we find, by the time we get the newsletter, it's already circulated to so many people by the same people. The other thing we also did was to have the national working group. And over time, we were able to pick the people who are going to see the implementation, because for us, we looked at the end product. We want to implement INPAS, and therefore, every person in the national working group have a role. We have donors, we have auditors, we have CFOs, we have the regulatory bodies, we have people from INPRF, that is the accountant body, so that by the time we are saying we want now to go to the next stage of implementation, it is going to be very easy for us. And by the way, we already have a few organizations who are willing to be the early adopters. So for us, I think we almost we know once we say we have a few organizations who are willing to be the early adopters of the standard. Thank you.
Wonderful. Caroline, asante sana, let me say that. And I think Kenya has been a fantastic example of pioneering country, and we're really excited to work with you. So thank you, the three of you. You have been representatives of all the different group members, and maybe there's people in the audience. Maybe you can give us a wave if you yourself have been a member of one of these groups. And I'd like to extend a huge thank you to all of you. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on now to the next phase of the project, which was the really important phase that Chris mentioned about public consultation. And I'd love to bring in Nathaniel Congo at this point. So 21 to 24 was this period of intense public consultation. We issued a consultation paper. We decided on the name for the guidance. We issued an exposure draft, or ED, in 3 parts, together with a number of explanatory videos. We held webinars and we held regional events in Africa, in Latin America, and in Asia. And we received hundreds of comments and responses. Now, Nathan, welcome. You are the West Africa Regional Finance Director for Muso Health, based in Côte d'Ivoire. And you were one of the respondents who shared your views. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that. I'm just interested to know if that's something that you'd ever done before. I know you're a finance professional. Have you ever engaged in these kinds of international consultations before? And how did you find that experience of inputting to an international standard?
Okay, thank you, Sam, and good morning to everyone. In fact, yes, this was the first time for me to participate to this kind of consultation about accounting now. But I wanted to do it firstly because for me this was an important missing piece in our sector. And the second thing for me was really to have my say as a practitioner and professional in the sector, and knowing also the context of West Africa and Francophone countries. So this was really interesting, but it was not easy because the documents we received were so dense. And also coupled with our responsibilities in our NGOs, it was not leaving us enough time to review them. But at the end, I think that the idea of having webinars and videos was very helpful, and this made the task much easier. So really thank you for open the door for us to participate as practitioners. This was really good, and I think the input also valuable. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nathaniel, and thank you for taking the time and effort, because it wasn't easy. We tried to make it easier, but it was a big list, and thank you. And all of you in the room who were respondents to our public consultations, thank you very much. Now, Tam, you're the founder of the I-61 Foundation in Mauritius, and you shared your views as part of this consultation process. Thank you for taking the time to do that. Now, I'm interested to know if you'd ever responded to anything like this before, and how did you find the experience of inputting to an international accounting standard?
Thanks so much, Sam. And as everyone else said, huge congratulations for getting to this point, and what an amazing example of international collaboration to see a job well done. So congratulations to everybody involved. And thank you for the opportunity for sharing a few words. This was indeed my first time responding to an accounting standard consultation. And I did it because it was relevant to what I do, and really what INPAS is all about has really resonated loudly with me. I have a limited financial background, and I found a very small nonprofit in a small island country. So I did initially feel a little intimidated by the enormity of the project, and really if my voice was necessary to to contribute to what was already a vast network of experience that was being tapped into. Well, I couldn't have been more wrong. From the outset, the conversations and the discussions were pertinent and my input was welcomed. I think, as somebody has already said, just really encouraging those of us from smaller nations to contribute and to be asked to contribute was really something. So thank you for that. The documents were pretty dense, but the video resources and the webinar events were helpful to understand the practical implications of the proposals. And I learned so much actually myself from the process, and it was great to feel that the voice that I did have could shape a little of what was required. The foundation I work for is all about supporting and educating nonprofits and in meeting regulatory standards and instrumental in driving their funding. So sharing the INPAS financial standards with our partners will enhance their compliance even further, which I'm really excited about. And I'm really grateful to have been a tiny part of this trailblazing initiative and excited to see INPAS being rolled out. With nonprofits empowered through transparent funding allocation and standardized reporting, communities will definitely be strengthened through increased donor confidence and repeated funding initiatives. So really excited about that, and thank you, Sam.
Thank you so much, Tam. And you've literally ruined my mascara. You brought a tear to my eyes from that. I'm so happy to hear you say that.
It was an extraordinary experience and really look forward to continuing to collaborate with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And let me extend my thank you to everyone here who also contributed and took the effort to respond. It wasn't that easy. It was, we tried to make it as easy as possible, but they are dense documents. So everybody who took the time to contribute and respond, a real thank you. So next up, I'd like to bring in Siham Bortkosh, sorry. Now, back in that 2014 survey that we heard from Gareth Morgan, he mentioned that not everybody had the same understanding of the word accounting standards. And some of the respondents were actually talking about donor and grant reporting rather than whole of entity reporting. Now, that was always important to our funders as well, and we knew it was essential to really meet the needs. So all of our efforts up to 2023 had been primarily focused on the whole of entity accounting. But then in 2023, we decided to explore the possibility of producing guidance to harmonize grant reporting. Now, Siham, you've been involved in previous donor reporting harmonization initiatives like Money Where It Counts, as well as Humantum's work on the administrative cost research project. So you were the obvious choice to be the technical lead for the working group that developed the content that later became INPAS Guide 1, Harmonized Grant Reporting. So Siham, tell us a bit about your experience. I'm guessing you could probably write a book about it, but what actually just stands out for you?
Thanks so much, Sam. I can write a book, but I will keep it brief. It was such a privilege to work with the Supplementary Statement Working Group to develop what's become INPAS Practice Guide 1. Quite early on, we realised that the supplementary statement had to have some fixed points to make it consistent with INPAS. But at the same time, we also knew it had to offer flexibility to accommodate donor and NPO needs. So we came up with the idea of a basic format that aligns with INPAS and is reconcilable to the INPAS financial statements, but with optional additional columns and notes that can be tailored to provide information that donors need and want. Thinking back, I remember I was so conscious of what a unique opportunity we had to address this really long-standing challenge for NPOs around donor reporting. We all know that NPOs are often faced with many, many different grant reporting requirements, which are often conflicting, and it's a huge time and resource requirement. So I knew we had an opportunity to address it. And to be frank, throughout the process, there were times when I just didn't think we would get there. So, for example, when the technical advisory group quite understandably felt that the supplementary statement we were designing was outside the scope of the general purpose financial reporting requirement, we thought maybe we wouldn't be able to go ahead. But your optimism and tenacity really helped a lot at those times, Sam. You sort of kept us going. And now here we are. And as more and more donors adopt or agree to use INPAS Guide 1, the positive impact on NPOs will be felt all around the world. I guess it just remains to say I'm so proud of the work that we did on the practice guide to get to today. And I would really like to personally thank all the members of the working group, who contributed so much, and also you, Sam, and Karen, and the other SIPFA representatives who between you all made it happen.
Thank you, Siham. Thank you so much for your work on this. And obviously everybody asks us, what about donors? Are they involved in this? And so on the next slide, you'll see we have a donor statement of support. This is still sitting on the IFR-for-NPO website, and it's signed by a number of big name donors saying that they agree that the quality of reporting needs to be improved and of reducing the burden to reporting organizations. So please do take a look at that statement. And it's been so essential to have that support. So thank you so much for that work. And we're going to hear a bit more about that from Karen later. So the final thing on this journey is that we finally announced the name of the standard as INPAS. I think that was a couple of 3 or 4 months ago. And that completes the journey. We can look back and see the mountain that we have climbed together. And I'd again like to thank every one of you that's been involved. So we're now going to play our launch video.
Non-profit organisations, or NPOs, play a vital role worldwide, delivering impact and improving lives. Their success depends on trust from the communities they serve, their funders and regulators. Transparency lays the foundation for trust. NPOs demonstrate accountability by sharing clear information about their funding and how resources are used to deliver their missions. Until 2025, there was no international accounting standard for NPOs. This has created inefficiencies, a lack of comparability, and a heavy reporting burden due to multiple formats. That's changing with the International Non-Profit Accounting Standard, or INPAS. INPAS sets the standard for NPO financial reporting globally, helping organisations prepare annual accounts that meet the needs of diverse stakeholders. Countries are already starting to adopt it for use by their NPOs. Accompanying the standard, INPAS Practice Guide 1 introduces a harmonised format for grant reports or supplementary statements. It explains how grant reports should link to the whole of entity accounts, making it easier to audit. Funders played a key role in its development, and it can be used for grantee reporting, streamlining efforts and saving time. This work started in 2019 with the IFR-for-NPO project, which was led by SIPFA and Humentum in response to global demand. Today, INPAS is an inclusive standard, shaped with input from national standard setters across 15 countries from all continents. Following due process for international standards, it was validated and improved through consultations with stakeholders in 86 countries. Built on existing accounting standards, INPAS is adapted to meet the unique needs of NPOs, bringing a standalone solution. And it's governed by a newly established public interest entity, the International Non-Profit Reporting Foundation. INPAS is more than just an accounting or compliance exercise. It's a bold step towards transforming financial accountability. It also contributes to solving sector-wide challenges, such as direct funding to local organisations, flexible funding, and fair coverage of support costs. Surprisingly, it does 2 things at once. It improves quality and reduces the burden of grant reporting. That's a win for everyone: donors, regulators, auditors, and above all, the organisations doing social good. Now's the time to take INPAS off the page and into practice.
Super. And you can see that video from the INPRF.org website. So I'd love to bring in now Humentum and SIPFA, Anna Blackman, who's the CFO of SIPFA, and Jocelyn Boughton, the co-CEO of Humentum. Anna, let me hand over to you for some words from SIPFA first.
Thank you very much, Sam, and huge congratulations to you and the team for climbing this particular mountain or eating this particular elephant, which I know has been in the works for a really long time. So huge congratulations to get to this point. So having worked on for sort of 6 years on the development of INPAS, CIPFA and I guess and Humentum didn't want the end of the IFRS for NPO project to be the end. Actually, you know, getting the standard is the beginning of the journey. Notwithstanding you've climbed one mountain, actually what we want to do is get people adopting it to make sure the benefits get realised. And when we looked at it, you know, there are only 2 accounting standard setters in the world since the 1990s. One meets the needs of capital markets and for-profits, and the other for governments. And neither's a really great home for INPAS, given what it's trying to do. So you may well have seen that on the 1st of October, we announced that we're continuing our collaboration with Humentum, and we've created a new entity, the International Not-for-Profit Reporting Foundation. What this does is put INPAS in a long-term home for the future, and we can then be really confident that the project you've all been working on is going to have a lasting legacy through that foundation. And having led that development with Humentum and alongside all of you, you know, colleagues at CIPFA and I feel a huge pride in being able to establish the INPRF with Humentum as an independent body that will become the body that takes this work forward and really drives adoption across the globe. So the foundation represents a vital step in giving the not-for-profit sector the same professional consistency and credibility in financial reporting standards that the private and the public sectors have. So we're hugely proud of what you and the team have achieved. We're also super excited about what comes next. And I'm going to hand over to Jocelyn to talk a little bit about that.
Thanks, Anna. It's been a pleasure to work with you and your colleagues from CIPFA, and really equally as proud at Humentum to be at this stage, coming to the end of the project and moving forward with INPAS. So the launch of INPAS this month really marks a turning point for non-profit financial reporting, and making sure that organisations are equipped as necessary with the global accounting standard that will streamline requirements and hopefully foster financial sustainability. And as I mentioned, we are really proud to establish the foundation and see it going forward, and this next stage after the work on the project. This is now the critical work that builds resilience and shift powers to the local actors and gives them greater autonomy and influence. Next slide, please. And so we can see at Humentum, we're so proud to have played our part. And if you just look at this global movement and how many people are engaged, and even on this call today, where you are covering from around the world, and we've heard from some of those people in those countries, but this is 15,000 stakeholders in nearly 170 countries. There's not many that are missing from this. So we can say with great confidence that INPAS has been developed by the sector, for the sector. And then lastly, I want to say how INPAS will transform the sector. And we truly believe that the adoption will make that happen, make things fairer, more efficient for NPOs and for funders. You can see some of the benefits here. We've got stronger audit assurance, easier due diligence, improved transparency, accountability, and more consistency. And for the NPOs, there's a reduced burden that saves all those multiple formats. And as an accountant myself of many years and an ex-CFO, I can really truly share the sympathy here. And it's a long way for local NPOs to demonstrate their financial capacity, better information for board members and managers, and certainly more relevant products and services to meet the sector. So back to you, Sam.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jocelyn and Anna. It's wonderful to have you make these fantastic announcements. So now I'm going to bring in Karen Sanderson. Now, I'm really honoured to introduce you to her. She's the colleague I've worked with most closely over the last 6 years. Karen is the INPAS Technical Director and has really been the primary penholder, haven't you, as leading the INPAS Secretariat. Karen can explain the thinking behind every single paragraph in INPAS. Minutes to walk us through the primary features.
Thank you very much, Sam. And I kind of feel that I might be a party pooper in some way if we start to get too much into the technical. So I'm not going to do that today. And you've heard already about INPAS and what it is in terms of being guidance for general purpose financial reporting. So that's the whole of entity reporting. Perhaps what we haven't said in the discussion so far is that it's a principles-based document. And I'm sure that when people start applying it, that's going to bring some challenges with it, because it doesn't tell you exactly what to do. It's not a rule. It will tell you what the principle is, and then you're going to have to do some thinking about how you apply that principle. So I'm sure that is going to introduce some challenges for some, but some real opportunities as well, because rules don't always work when you've got such diverse non-profits. You need a principle to be able to do something specific for your organization. So INPAS covers what you recognize, how you measure it once you have recognized it, how you present it, and additional disclosures that you make. And importantly, as Kenneth mentioned earlier, it also covers what to include in a narrative report. As with any other international accounting standard, it's going to be up to each jurisdiction to decide whether it's going to use it or not, or require its use. And in some, it may be permitting the use. But of course, in some jurisdictions, NPOs may just be able to use it itself. And I see the question about the busting the terminology. NPO is a non-profit organization. So can we move on to the next slide, which is looking at the practice guide. Again, Siham covered this earlier, so I'm not going to talk too much about this. This is a bit more rules based than INPAS is, with a standardized format to look to harmonize grant reporting. This is not mandatory, so if you use INPAS, you don't have to use Practice Guide 1, and indeed if you use Practice Guide 1, you don't have to use INPAS. But we have designed them to work together, and perhaps we can move on to the next slide to kind of perhaps just describe that a bit more fully. So we've got these two documents. INPAS is about 300 pages and obviously addressed at the whole of entity level. 300 pages might sound quite daunting, but actually it's a lot less than other full international standards, which run to thousands of pages. So it is quite succinct. The practice guide is an even shorter document in terms of that harmonized reporting that we've talked about. And we have designed the two to work together. So that individual grant reports actually link to the whole of entity reports. And the fantastic thing about that is around the degree of assurance that we can all take that we haven't done a grant report that's independent of the general purpose reform report. They are linked together. And there are anchor points between the two that are set out in the guidance so that they can do that. If we could just move on to the next slide, please. So we've talked about INPAS, we've talked about Practice Guide 1. We haven't talked about two other things that are part of the suite of documents. There is implementation guidance that is there to try and help people get into a bit more about how do you apply those principles that I talked about in INPAS. So it's intended to help with that application. Also in the implementation guidance, there are some illustrative financial statements that are there. They don't cover every permutation that you can possibly think of,
but they are there to try and pick up some of the typical kind of activities or transactions that a non-profit might have, and it's designed to work with some illustrative examples that are in the implementation guidance. Not on this slide, but we are also publishing on at a glance documents that are going to basically summarize what's in some of the key sections in there to try and help you work out which ones might be relevant for you. And then the basis for conclusions is a document that explains how we got there. Sam says that I can tell you how we got there. It's in my head, having been through the process, but this document tries to write that down so that anybody doesn't have to ring me up and ask me, because that might be quite a lot of calls, but can use this document to understand what we intended when we did that. And then on to the next slide, please. And this next slide really is kind of a thank you, both to the IFRS Foundation and IFAC. As I said very much earlier, we have based INPAS on IFRS for SMEs, and they very kindly allowed us to use that in developing INPAS. So we very much appreciate their collaboration on this and their willingness to support our endeavours. So not any technical stuff today. I'm sure that there'll be opportunities to drill down into some detail in the future, but that's kind of just a bit of a whistle stop from me. Thank you. Back to you, Sam.
And now I'm delighted to bring in Ian Carruthers, who's been mentioned by various people as we've gone through. So Ian, you're in the final weeks of your role as the chair of the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, and you've been involved in IFR for MPO since right from before it started, and as the chair of the technical advisory group. And now you're going to be the CEO of our new foundation, the International Non-Profit Reporting Foundation. So I'd love you to tell us a bit about that foundation.
Thank you very much, Sam. It's great to be here and lovely to relive that whole journey. And I think actually I'd like to pick up on really the comments that Anna and Jocelyn were making about this is about the next stage of the journey. We've got the guidance. It's now making it live and making it happen. And this is what INPRF is about. It's the home of INPAS going forwards. And so we've been thinking about bigger picture. What are we trying to do? Reminding ourselves really of what we've been thinking about for so long that can now actually come into place. And it's this idea about confidence, best use of resources by MPOs, and above all, social good. That's really, I think, what drives us all. And so that's the vision. The mission is very much about what INPRF will be doing, and so it's about promotion, it's about development. Now, if we can go on to the next slide, what will we be doing in terms of the next few years, and very much taking a rest, if you like, from the standard setting side of things. And it's about promotion, about, you know, the standard being picked up and used globally. We know that actually there's a lot of challenges. Those have been mentioned by Geraldine and others. And obviously we've got the guidance that Karen has just been talking about, but we know we need to do more. And so basically we're going to be working with you and understanding the more detailed guidance you need on how to implement, how to adopt, you know, because there are challenges in jurisdictions in terms of how do you navigate getting this into regulation and so on. And it's not just about us providing guidance, but it's also about you being able to share your experiences. So establishing communities of practice is going to be really super important, and bringing the various different groups together so that we really get that synthesis of the learning and the experience globally. And we need to make this stand up, and we need to make this work for you going forward. So there's about how we make the organisation fit for the future and sustainable. And if we move on to the next slide, you know, what are we putting in place? Well, above all, INPRF is a membership organisation. We're delighted to have CIPFA and Humentum on board as our founder members, but we want a lot more people involved. This is very much about the MPO community globally. So essentially, any organization that is a non-profit or is working with non-profits, promoting non-profits, not making a profit itself, you can be members of INPRF. Now, we also have trustees who will be responsible for the actual running and accountability of the organisation. We have 2 trustees already nominated by CITFA and Humentum, Joyce Tamale, who's the interim chair trustee, and Chris Austin, and both of them bring really great experience to bear already. But we are going to be launching a drive to recruit the other 6 trustees, and very importantly, a permanent chair trustee. So watch out for that coming later in October, alongside the launch event in Geneva. And then, of course, we have the organisation, and as Sam has said, I'm hugely honoured and really delighted to be the inaugural CEO and to be able to continue pushing forward on the journey. Obviously, Sam and Karen are going to be there as well. But I think, and if we can do the last click, I think one of the really important things is everything that's gone before in terms of all that volunteer effort, that's still going to be there. Those voluntary advisory groups are still going to be there. Now more than ever, we need our country champions, as this is really available for use. So we want, we want to work with you. And as we develop the organisation, we really want to bring that diversity, maintain that diversity, and build that diversity of views and experience, and make sure that, back to that vision, this is about social good, and it's about maximising the way in which NPOs can deliver on that. So just fantastic to be part of that journey, and really looking forward to continuing to work with everybody. So Sam, back to you.
Thank you so much, Ian. Yes, so the end of the IFR for NPO project is not the end of INPAS. It's really the beginning of the next chapter. We climbed this huge mountain, but we were in the foothills, and we've got a bigger mountain to climb ahead, which is really exciting. So moving on, what is next? So if you go to the website of the INPRF, inprf.org, you will find that if you can go back to the, so there's a button saying download INPAS. At the moment it says coming soon, but we know that it will be published this month. And so you will be able to click that button and access INPAS for free. You'll be able to download the PDF. Now, also, you can see on the menus across the top, there's different information about the foundation. There's information about INPAS, including the at-a-glance documents that Karen mentioned. We have one so far, first of a series. You'll find FAQs in there. And I know there's lots of questions in the chat, which we won't manage to cover today, but you might find some of the answers in the FAQs. We've got news and events. We've got some information about the INPAS development process, which, as Chris mentioned, it's really important for people to understand how this document was created, because that's part of its credibility. And of course, ways in which you can get involved. If we can go to the next slide, if you click download INPAS, you'll get to a form, and you just fill in your details and press submit to download the PDF. And when you do that, there will also be a terms of use document. So if we can go to the next slide, it is really important that if you're going to be using INPAS, then you need to just be checking in about the licensing and translation. This is especially relevant if you're a national standard setter or a regulator in a country and you're looking to adopt INPAS in your country. Just do read this first and get in touch. Licenses are free, but it's really important because we are under intellectual property regulations from the IFRS Foundation, on which INPAS is based. So it's really important. So do just check that out. And then finally, there's a section on adoption, and there's different resources for different stakeholders. I do here just want to sort of do a little bit of expectation management. Adopting international accounting standards is generally considered. It's a considered process that takes time. Countries might even undergo their own national stakeholder consultation processes to decide the most appropriate pace and scope, and how to support stakeholders in their context. And it also will take some time for the networked infrastructure, if you like, of auditors, of training and software providers to provide that, prepare the support and prepare the products that will support adoption. So that means the time to get cracking is now. We need to get the ball rolling now. Our goal is 10 countries, 10 significant funders and 10,000 NPOs adopting INPAS by 2030. So the time to start is now. Please do let us know or tag us on social media if you are making progress or steps towards adoption or supporting others adopting, because it really showcases that pioneering energy, and it creates that momentum and it encourages others. Before we wrap up, I'd love to show a short video from B Lang in Malaysia, and then I'll have a final word.
Good day, everyone. I am Biling from Malaysia. It is with a sense of shared purpose that I join you today for the launch of the International Non-Profit Accounting Standard, INPAS. As a member of the Technical Advisory Group, I have had the opportunity to contribute to the technical development of this initiative, which marks a notable moment for the third sector. INPAS introduces a principle-based framework that reflects sector diversity and operational realities, promoting greater consistency and enhancing the quality of financial communication. This is more than a technical milestone. It represents a collective effort to improve clarity, coherence, and relevance in non-profit financial reporting. Drawing on sector insight and shaped through rigorous consultation, this framework is expected to enhance transparency and stakeholder confidence. INPAS marks a meaningful progress in the evolving non-profit landscape. Congratulations to all who have contributed to this landmark achievement. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to join this historic launch for the sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bilang, for recording that for us. So in our final minutes, people have been asking how to contact us. I think on the next slide, you can see we've got the new website, INPRF.org. The old website, the IFR for NPO website, is still active, but we will be sunsetting it. So the new place to go really is the foundation website. That's your home for all current information. We've also got an email there, and there's a contact form on the website as well. Let me take the final minute just to say a huge thank you to all our advisory group members, to all the staff in Humentum and CIPFA as well, who weren't necessarily 100% part of the project, but contributed, to our comms and communications and marketing people who had to try and make an accounting standard sound interesting. Great challenge there for in the sector. Please email us, please get in touch on social media, and a huge thank you. We've ended on time. So well done, everybody. It's been wonderful to hear all your voices. All the best.